dot that just comes on. So just to make you aware, as I say, that the recording is taking place, and that recording is for people who either can't join us, anyone who has to leave partway through, but also if you are joining the webinar, sometimes it's useful just to be able to pop back and repeat something that somebody said. You might want to share it with a colleague, or there might be some links that we put in the chat area that you might want to access as well. So the recording is on, so please do use the chat area in the bottom right hand corner, and I should officially welcome you to this webinar. It's part of the Learning Futures Screencasting CPD module. My name's Rob Martin, and I'll say a little bit about the presenters in a moment. You'll see on the screen, just to talk you through the screen quickly, you're aware of the chat area at the bottom. You'll also see at the top of the screen there should be an icon of a silhouette of somebody raising their hand, and it's called the set status icon, and if you click on there you'll see there's a number of options that you can, if you wish to show applause, laughter, and you can see that at the end of somebody's name on the attendees list you'll see the status on there. If you do wish to use that, by all means, but you will just need to clear that status by clicking on that drop down arrow and clicking clear status again at the end, otherwise that stays there all the time. There's also a poll just under the attendees where you're welcome to use that if you wish to, just to share how familiar you are with screencasting, if it's something that you're new to, or if it's something that actually you've got a bit of experience and you're just looking to share views with other people. If you find as we go through the webinar that for any reason suddenly everything goes quiet, or you think that the screen has frozen, it may well be that you've just dropped out through your internet connection, and all you need to do is just close down the screen if you can and click on the same link that you were sent to get into the meeting in the first place. It takes about a minute or so to come back in, and you'll just pick up as the webinar continues. But as I mentioned, we will be recording this, and you will be sent a link if that happens. If for any reason one of the hosts, the presenters, drops out, then there's a couple of us here, so we'll make sure that we pick up until the other person's able to rejoin that meeting if there's any issue. So touch wood, we've been okay so far, but just in case, just hang fire. If you think it's all gone quiet and the screen is frozen, you may well have been kicked out, but if you find that a host is gone, then one of us will pick up the pieces until that person comes back in. Okay. If you've not already seen, at the top of the screen you should have a green icon, the loudspeaker. You can adjust the volume with the drop down arrow there, but also the volume settings on your own equipment. So if you're using a tablet or computer, you'll be able to adjust the volume there as well. If it is a bit quiet at any point, then just let us know using the chat area, and we will do what we can to make any audio setting changes that we can here today. So I'm delighted to be able to introduce Roger Clegg, who's the Head of Learning Resources from the Oldham College. Roger's got some great experience of using screencasting, but we're getting real value for our money today because he's also leading on one of the Learning Futures projects. So Roger has very kindly agreed to join us today and share his experience. He'll answer questions as we go through the presentation. If you do have a question in the chat area, if you just start it with a letter Q, it just helps us identify that it's a question that somebody wants an answer to, and we'll do our best to answer that. Anything that we don't get a chance to answer during the webinar, we will come back to you. So if there's lots of content in the chat area, we'll also make sure we send that out as well as the recording of the webinar. So I'm just going to ask Roger just to check his microphone. If you can just turn the microphone on, Roger, and just say hi to everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Brilliant. Thanks, Roger. That was loud and clear. That's brilliant. So before I hand over to Roger, just to explain the process of how we're going to structure the webinar, you're aware that this is part of a series of the CPD framework with Learning Futures. So the first part is a webinar. Then what we're going to do is share some resources and activities that we've put together to help you apply some of these principles of screencasting. And then what we would ask is, if you found something useful, if there's something that's in the webinar itself, and all the resources that we're going to share with you, then back onto the Learning Futures site and just share any comments of how you found it. If there's something that you've done that you found has worked really well, or something that you've tried that hasn't worked, we'd be delighted for you just to share your comments, and I'll show you how to do that at the end of this webinar. So before we move on, if you're not aware, this is part of a framework, so there are a number of modules that you're able to access, and the recordings for those are all available through the Learning Futures site as well. So again, I'll show you where you can find all of this, but you no longer need to register to access the recordings of previous webinars. You can get them straight away and share those with any colleagues that you wish to. So our agenda is, I'm going to hand over to Roger in a second. We'll take some questions and answers, so please just pop any comments and questions in the chat here, and we'll pause now and again just to make sure we answer them. And then we're going to come back to myself, and I'm going to just run through the resources and the CPD activity that we've put together. So Roger, if I can see your microphone is on, I'm just going to load your slides. Okay, they screen any second. And as I say, I'm delighted to be able to hand over to Roger Clegg, who's the Head of Learning Resources at the Oldham College. So Roger, over to you.
Thanks very much, Rob. Good afternoon, everyone, from what is a sunny Oldham, or it was 10 minutes ago before I locked myself in a soundproof, windowless room. So hopefully I'll still be the same when I get out of this webinar. So thanks for joining us, as Rob said, this afternoon. I'm going to talk about screencasting, some of the work that we've done previously, why we think it works for us, and more importantly, why we think it works for our learners. So hopefully have a look at the tools that we're using, one or two tips and techniques, and then the Learning Futures project, which is regarding video assessment feedback. We'll touch on that because that may be of interest to you, and maybe give you some information on how you can get some further information regarding that project if you so wish. So what we're looking to do is, as you can see on the screen, why screencasting, some of the software that we've used, the difference between what I call an e-demonstration and an interactive recording, the learner assessment feedback, which is the project we're running with Learning Futures, crucially some points to consider, which actually is a polite way of saying mistakes that Roger's made, and storage and access considerations that you may have. Again, as Rob said, you may have some other questions and queries that we might be able to help you with, or it may well be that we're not sure, but we can go and find out. So just pop those in the chat and we'll pick them up when we can. Okay, YouTube, I'm sure I don't have to ask the question, have you heard of YouTube? And this is one of the YouTube's one of the reasons why we think screencasting can be useful to our learners, and certainly their learning. You can see the statistics on the screen. Crucially, we know that young people in particular, I don't wish to be stereotypical there, but young people in particular will watch YouTube videos. They will watch all sorts of other type of videos now, probably even moving away from YouTube. Short, low quality often, videos that are giving either humorous or technical information. And there's a wealth of skills and resources out there, and I'm sure many of you are using them either in your own teaching practice or certainly putting them on your VLEs, or using them in classrooms, instructional information. So we thought, why don't we produce our own sort of like videos, and screencasting is a very quick and easy way that can do that. We don't need any more, I don't think, what I'd call BBC quality. Most colleges and learning providers will probably have now some fantastic media departments that are producing that, their own TV shows often in cases. Quite costly to do that if you're producing learning content. We think we can produce that learning content quite quickly using screencasting software. We use here, tend to use, most staff will use Screencastomatic. The web address is on there, but quite easy to Google. Or I don't like saying that, but quite easy to Google. Obviously, Screencastomatic. A number of reasons for that we'll use Screencastomatic. One of them is that the free version is actually very, very good. You can see now that's basically what you get for your free version. What they call a professional version, which is $15 a year, which is round about at the moment £10.50 with the exchange rate. But in terms of the free version, to get started, you've got the restrictions really. Your maximum recording time 15 minutes. One of the things is I wouldn't recommend that you go much above 15 minutes anyway. Again, to that sort of thing about engaging your learners. And the only other thing is that you do get a Screencastomatic watermark, and I've kept that on a couple of my slides just to show you what that actually looks like. But in a sense, to get started with something like Screencastomatic, no cost, easy access, and very much not a problem for you to use. As you move on, and again, this is something that we'll chat about, I'll try and show you, that you will see that the professional version does give you things like scripting tools, editing tools, you can do screenshots, you can do webcam only recording. So as you get a little bit more sophisticated, you would probably want some of your software to match, if you like, your needs. We have got some members of staff in the college that will use something like Camtasia Studio. From our point of view, quite an expensive piece of software, very, very good piece of software, but actually the vast majority of members of staff will use probably about 10% of that capability. So it's something that we don't need to use. Hopefully you'll see in the chat that Rob's kindly posted up a review of other screencasting software to look at, and there are some excellent tools out there. So yes, if you're interested, go away and have a look at Screencastomatic, but there are obviously other ones. I'm pretty confident that some of the things that I'll be talking to you about this afternoon will apply to all of them, particularly those points to consider or mistakes that Roger's made. Okay, so why did we use Screencastomatic? Other than the fact that there was a free version and a professional version is very low cost. It was based on the web. Here at Oldham College we have an excellent, I'd say almost outstanding IT support team, but they're extremely busy. So if you want something doing, you do have to request it, and you'll have to wait a day or so. With Screencastomatic, the web version, as long as you've got internet access and the latest version of Java, then there's no downloads required. You can just start recording and away you go. There is a download option, and some people have used that when they're working at home. But by and large, I think all the people that I know use the web version. So again, with it being free or low cost, it's also very, very low maintenance. It also means that members of staff, they can access at home or at work, and they see exactly the same thing. And again, sometimes that's not often the case when we're looking at software that we're having to purchase. If you want to be doing recordings, voice recordings, then you'll need a microphone. If you want to do a headshot or shots of little objects, then you'll need a webcam, and obviously you'll need some form of storage space. Again, we'll come on and talk about storage, some of the benefits and some of the pitfalls of that. The webcam and the microphone, again, we found that all our college laptops basically meet the requirements. So again, there's no additional hardware that people have to purchase. So we have to be honest in this world that we live in. Costs can be prohibitive sometimes, particularly when you want to spread something, when you want to make something large scale. And again, the Learning Futures project, because we've got obviously some funding to assist with that, we have actually purchased headsets and microphones. If it's something you're going to be doing you've got something on a large scale, it's probably worth investing in a really good microphone and headset, because it does make a difference to the sound, particularly in terms of sort of background sound that you may or may not pick up. Okay, so I've done some screenshots just to show you how quick and easy it is. In terms of Screencastomatic, when I logged on, if I was logging on, I'd log in myself, and I'd see once I'd logged on, top right hand corner, it's got the email address that I used. One downside, it's not for us, is that you will get advertisements in there even when you've got the professional view. So you can see a little advertisement on the right hand side of the screen. We've not found anything that has popped up as an advert that we'd feel to be controversial, particularly within a learning environment. But once I'm logged on, I'd click on the start recording button, which you can hopefully just see, the start recording button. So I'd click on there. Once I clicked on there, it would then just take me through, and what I'd find is exactly this square that's on the screen, and that would be on whatever active window I've got open. So it could well be that I'm on a particular piece of software, so I could be on Word, I could be on Moodle's our virtual learning environment, I could be on a staff intranet, I could be on a CAD CAM, I could be on images, absolutely anywhere. And it will record, as the word suggests, screencasting, whatever I've got live on my screen. It's a little bit small. One of the things that you'll see on there is that where it says max 8 hours plus free space, that's basically the space that I've got on my Screencastomatic storage area. Okay, again, with the professional version, you do get extra space. Where it says pause, where I've got Alt and P, that's the shortcut to pause. So as you were doing a screencast, you're working your way through. If you'd forgot something, if you made a mistake, if you wanted to cough, if you felt somebody was going to walk behind you, then the Alt and P would actually pause it, ready for you to go again. And again, we'll mention that in a little bit more detail. One of the good things is you can change that. So if you don't like Alt and P, you can change the shortcut key. So once you're happy, once you're on your screen, your page, then the next thing to do would be to set the size of your screen. So again, hopefully you can set it a little bit small. Basically, you can set a standard screen sizes, or you can go to full screen or full HD. Okay, the choice is yours. Depends how you want to publish it. More often than not, I'd be looking at something like full HD or full screen. To be able to do that, it does capture things up. Just be aware that if you do that, it'll be things like you will get in menus and headers, etc., that would pick that up. But again, it's just something for you to play around with. You will also see on there that you've got a webcam. So because if you've got a webcam attached to your laptop, whether it's built in or a third-party one, then once you click on the webcam icon, it will basically find it automatically, and it will just say, do you want the webcam on or do you want it off? Okay. Again, just depends on your audience or exactly what you want to do. If you want to personalize it, then it's quite good to have the webcam on, and they can see, obviously they can see the presenter's face. I think it's quite good for learners. If they're seeing, they can see who it is that's speaking to them on the day. Other things to sort of like tell you about working from left to right, you've got your standard features, obviously the red circle, which is your record button. Then you've got where you can set your microphones, so whether that's an internal, external microphone. You can have whether you have sort of like where you've got the speakers and you've got off. That would be if you have any external sound. Okay, so it may well be that you want to play music through, something like that. It's quite hard to sync it, I'll be honest with you, but it's something that we've played around with. And again, you've got some of the other settings, the cross being the one to cancel. So with those, once you start recording, you will get a pause button. So you can pause, so you could use your mouse to pause, or you could use the Alt and P. Once you're through, you can preview what you've recorded. So before you actually go and publish, you can preview exactly what you want to record, and you can restart that recording at any time. We'll come on to sort of like how you do some of the editing maybe a little bit later. But as you can see, in terms of sort of like screencasting, just to recap a little bit, I've gone onto the web, I've typed in an address, I haven't had to log in. If I don't wish to log in, I can just press record. I can set the screen size to whatever I wish to look at, and then as soon as I press record, it will be, as you would expect, it'll record everything that I do on there. When you come to save, you can decide whether you want the mouse pointer showing. You can also decide whether you want a halo effect around the mouse pointer, whether you want the mouse click to sound as a mouse click or not. And again, some of these things are just to play around with, and like anything else that you will use technology wise, that's exactly what I'll do. Just play around with it. Basically see that in terms of when you recorded, you can see on the bottom line where you've got restart and done. That's exactly all you need to do. Once you're happy and you've done your preview, then you just select done, and away you go. Once you're ready to save, you've got several options, and we'll go into a little bit more detail about these. But basically, those options are direct uploads. So that direct upload could be to YouTube. It could be local storage. So that local storage could be to a shared drive that you may have on your organization network. It could well be your own personal drive. It could be a USB pen. It could be cloud storage, or with the professional version, you can publish as a paper version. So we'll print it out as a handout, which for me is an excellent feature, because obviously we still have an audience that does like to receive paper handouts, so it stops you having to do things twice. So that can work quite well. What is good for me in terms of ease of use, when you're ready to save it, those options all appear, as you can see on the right hand side. I do have the edit recording option if I wish to go back, but in a sense I just give it a recording name and I'd click on one of the options. As you can see, so I can have Screencastomatic, YouTube, just a standard video file. And again, you can set the format of that. We use MP4 here because that works for us, because we're mainly Windows based. But as you can see, you can even go to cloud storage, which is like Google Drive or Dropbox, etc. As you get a little bit more perhaps advanced, or maybe you wish to produce even more professional, so I talked about sort of like the low quality YouTube effect, which might be a bit harsh, but if you were looking at and you wanted to produce something, perhaps some commercial work that was going to go out to companies, so a little bit more than that, quick and ready, something that's just going to be a help guide for perhaps some of your colleagues or students, then you can use the scripting tools. Now, if you're like me and you like to just jump straight in there and perhaps miss out a little bit of that planning, the scripting tools are really good for you, because what you can do is you can record your audio before recording the screen. So you record your audio, so basically exactly what you wish to talk about. If you wish to, obviously you could go around using your mouse pointers, etc. And then basically you create those captions. So hopefully you can see we've got the 0 seconds, 4 seconds, 11 seconds, and then once you've done that, you would then record the video, so you actually do the screencasting. You can also have captions on there, so those captions that would come up would even give you some instructions on what to do, just in case you forgot exactly where to click or what you were talking about. So that's just for that little bit of advance, and again, those scripting tools that are available with the subscription one, so which is about £10 a year, can be really beneficial. And also the captions, okay, definitely in terms of the captions can certainly help. They can certainly help your learners, but obviously in terms of accessibility is something that stops you. Is sometimes when people have had to do screen recording in the past, you've actually give it somebody else and then had to go away and script that. So just in terms of time and effort, that's something that slows the process down. Again, if you want to take that further on in terms of the scripting tools, this is the more advanced features of that, where you can see where you've got some of the tools. So you are getting into what I call video editing here, that you may in the past have had to use quite expensive and technical video editing software, whereas now I'm not ashamed to say, somebody like me can now actually do it. So you can see things like you can trim around, you could insert something, you can zoom in. So if you were showing an image or a particular technical piece of work, you could zoom straight in on that image. You can look at your transition, and you can also speed things up or slow them down. You see where you've got your scripts and your history on there. So like I say, from what seems to be something that's quite very straightforward and simplistic, using the tools can make it can add real value. Okay, so what would one look like? Obviously this is a static. I've taken a screenshot of a Screencastomatic. So this is something that we do quite regular in terms of working with our learners. So this is what I call an e-demo. So instead of giving students a handout or taking them into a classroom and talking to them for half an hour about how they may access our Moodle resources, whether that's from home, within the college, how they book a PC, etc., we now produce e-demos. This one has got a superlative good looking guy in the bottom right hand corner, just have to believe that. So you can also see that I have left on in this case in the bottom left hand corner, thanks very much Rob, in the bottom left hand corner, that's where the screencastomatic.com watermark is. So we never got anybody commenting on that. So again, it's quite discreet. It's not one that goes right across the screen. So if you can imagine this was somebody, in this case me, doing some form of e-demo video. This could be about how you book a PC within Oldham College. It would be a very short, possibly up to 2 minutes e-demo video. This would be available on our Moodle site for learners to access either in college or at home, that tells them how they would book a PC. So this is something that we take them through, they would use in their induction, but more importantly, they can use time and time again. The great thing is that basically a 2-minute video e-demo would take me 5 minutes to produce, no more. So in terms of time and again effort, it's quite low cost but quite high impact in terms of how they're working. One of the things that I sometimes do now is you can produce a screencast and just send that straight to straight to email. That video will go straight to email. So somebody could say to me, a member of staff, for example, Roger, how do you find the latest KPIs for English and Maths in this current year? So instead of typing it all out or producing a guide or a handout or trying to contact them on the phone, I'll just go on Screencastomatic. I'll copy my links, my working round, takes me about 60 seconds. I'll then say save to email and send, and they'll pick that up. They'll pick that up internally. I probably won't embarrass myself there by putting my picture on and by having the webcam on, but it's quite quick and easy to do. And again, I could be at home doing that. If I was home one night, as most of us do, log on, and hopefully you can see, just get that flavour about how quick and easy it is. The real benefit to that is that that's something then that once I've done and I've saved, I can use over and over again. This is a piece of software I think quite a few people are aware of. It was one that was talked about one of our Learning Futures project meetings. Kahoot, we use it quite a lot with our students. I'm not here to talk about Kahoot, but this is an e-demo that we produced just to show academic members of staff how quick and easy it is to create a Kahoot quiz. Okay, so this is an e-demo example. So again, this is one where I would actually have to type something in. So I'm typing in my email address and also my passwords, my personal email address. So I can just type that in. So again, it will pick up anything that you type, anything you insert. Absolutely no problem at all from that. And again, this would just be screen 2 of creating that Kahoot. A different way to create a screencast, although the way you develop it is exactly the same, will be something that's a bit more interactive. So in this case, this is from our football academy that use videos and interactive screencasting quite a lot. And basically they're setting up their football drills. So the students will set their own up, but predominantly it will be the coaching staff that will speak to the students, practically what they're going to deliver, what they're going to do on the training ground, and hopefully what they're going to take tactically into their game on a Wednesday afternoon. Or also it may well be it's what the students as coaches will be looking to do. So all this is it's actually based in PowerPoint. Actually, so it's in PowerPoint. They may do it on the interactive whiteboard to start with, and then the tutor will run through it as a screencast that's recorded. It'll be uploaded to Moodle, which we use as our VLE, and the students can access that as many times as they wish. So previously, it'd be quite complicated, I have to say, in my opinion. Drawings or designs will take quite a long time, have to be printed out, etc. But this is something that students can look at, increasingly look at on the phones. They will take tablets out onto the training ground, and again, they'll just pick those up. Very, very short screencast that can be easily produced. You can see on the next page, as you go through, that'd sort of like be the drill as it goes. So that'd be done in full motion, as if it is players on a training ground. They will also, and this could apply to anything, but if you're keeping on the football theme, it can also they can also do live stop and start. So the recording, say, of a game that's been on Match of the Day, they will do that and they'll annotate over the top. And again, some of our dancers use that for their professional sort of like, if you've got a straight arm, where do you think this could go wrong? So it can be done and looked at in terms of improvement. So anything that's on the screen, really good, it can run through. The one thing you have to watch is if you're running video through, it's just the sound. I think I mentioned this before, just about how that sound sinks in. Okay, this next thing is something new and is part of the Learning Futures project that we're working on, which is to look at using screencasting to provide video assessment feedback to our students. So working on the same premise, we're using exactly the same software. What you've got on the screen now is the recording of the screen, which is a split screen. So on the left hand side as you look is a student's work. So this student's submitted this work about equality and diversity and inclusion. And on the right hand side, this is our e-portfolio system, the student's e-portfolio page, and this is where the tutor's going to do the marking. So the tutors, you can see, they're using the halo effect, so that's the yellow circle. And what they'll be doing is actually talking to the student instead of annotating either in pen or typing it on about something that work that the student's done in 1.1. Okay, so instead of typing that up, they will write that, and they will actually put the clicks, the ticks, crucially, into the portfolio so the student sees it live. So you can see where the green arrow is on there. Those are the ticks. So the tutor's doing the two things at once. They're chatting to the student about examples of good practice or where they can do improvement, but that's all verbal. The student can see that, they can see that live, and hopefully what we think is a positive thing, they actually see the ticks go into the box. Okay, so they see those go into the box in terms of where they're at. The project that we're working through is an action research project. So part of that will be to see things like is it quicker in terms of providing that feedback? Is it the same? Is it longer? What do the students feel? Early indications are that it's slightly quicker, but we've got to do a lot more work to sort of like statistically analyse that. But that students think that they're getting a lot more feedback. So they think they're getting much more feedback. They're valuing that feedback. And the big thing for us is positive thing is that the students are listening and watching that feedback more than they will do with written comments. So we need to do the full research, but hopefully that'll be something. Well, it will be something that we will share with through Learning Futures. We will share with the sector as a whole. The important thing for me is that I think when we've tried this sort of thing before, we haven't sort of like had the external support. But the other thing is that we didn't have the software to match. So where we've tried it before, either some of the software we've used, we even used some of the, for those who use smart boards and use a notebook, we even used some of their recording, their inbuilt recorder, that just didn't do the job really. Or we've had members of staff that have used some of the more technical software such as Camtasia Studio. And then what they have to do is actually learn the software more than they're learning the assessment feedback. And where people have said, yeah, we think it's going to work, but actually it just takes us too long, it's actually more to do with the software development. Whereas here, actually, they can ignore the software because the screencasting software actually is quite intuitive and easy to use. There's also the real benefit, as it is with all of them, is that with using the web-based, they can do it at work in college, or they can do it at home. And still, I know I did when I did my teaching. Most of my marking was done at home. So again, people do have that choice using it. So if you're interested, that's something we can provide more information. But again, you can see the three different ways that we're starting to use the screencasting. One in terms of just pure demonstrations. One in terms of sort of like being interactive, perhaps even demonstrating learners' work. And then the next aspect of this here, actually providing detailed assessment feedback to people. Okay. So then, beware. Everything you do is recorded. Like anything, I made a bold statement. Not that I'm here to sell out anything. I've made a bold statement that it's nice and easy to use. Sometimes the easier something is to use, we can forget little bits of things, or maybe that's just me. So you do have to watch your email notifications. So anybody who's ever actually delivered a PowerPoint presentation, when you're logged on to your college network or your organisation network, there's nothing worse than your email notification popping up. So that'll be one that pop up. At best, it will distract people. At worst, they'll see that you have a very poor sense of humour, or at very, very worst, it could be something that's highly confidential that's popping up on there. So make sure your email notifications are off. What I would say is just make sure your email's turned off. Again, it will only distract you. Close all other windows down other than ones that you're going to be recording, because again, they're just a distraction or something that will get in the way. If you're using a webcam, beware of background or even the Queen photo bombing, something that's going on behind you. I found literally a broom cupboard this afternoon, so I'm okay, even though we're not using the webcam. But it does make it quiet, but it can become a problem, particularly sort of like if you're in a staff room. So just bear that in mind. Also in terms of background sound that can be picked up. Okay. Also, not that this would ever apply to me, but if you are using your office, that it's nice and neat and tidy behind in with you. Of course, if you're going to be doing a lot of them, you could have some nice background that you get some of your students to design or print out for you. Okay. I mentioned about how you might upload, store, and access. Obviously, what you're producing here are video files. Okay, so they can be quite large, depending on obviously what you're doing and the length of them. So you have got numerous options, and these are just a few of them that we've used here in the college. And the first two are the main ones that we use. So I mentioned we use Moodle, but you could apply to any VLE or learner management system. So that would be a case of you would save the recording and then you just simply upload it. So you'd upload that as a normal video file to Moodle or your VLE. You would give it a title and a label, and that'd be something that your learners could go and watch, whether that's an e-demo, something that's interactive, or it could even be part, again, if it's in Moodle, we developed some that are part of Moodle quizzes. You can, as you saw, upload straight to YouTube. Very easy, very quick to be able to do that. As long as you've got your own YouTube account, then that's something you can do. So some staff here have obviously their own personal accounts that they'll use. Some have departmental accounts that they've just set up. When I say it's quite easy to use, obviously it is. Sure, you're familiar with YouTube. One of the problems you may get with that, we've done it as part of the project where some people are using YouTube, which is great, and then they'll come in and they'll say, God, do you remember when we were setting ourselves up on YouTube? Yes, I do. I forgot my password. Why is it? Well, obviously I don't know what their password is. If it was their Moodle password, then I could just change it for them. But once we're going out to third party, so just people's expectations really. The other one is in terms of obviously what we're looking at in terms of assessment feedback. You would want to make sure that's confidential. So we would use unlisted, which basically means that the link has to be shared. But even that isn't, of course, 100% confidential. You can log onto Vimeo, and again, local drives. And as I said, you could go straight to email. And one of the things that we're starting to look at is Office 365. Don't know if you're aware, but they now have a new video channel. Apologies for that. I'm just going to switch my mic off for that cough. Sorry about that. Oh, apologies for that. I'm back now. Yeah, Office 365 now has its own video channel in there. It is something you have to turn on. So it's something you have to speak to your technical team. So if you subscribe to Office 365 for your students and certainly your staff as well, then you will have specific video channels. So that's something we're starting to explore about. Can we do the large amount of screencasting we're starting to do? Can we populate those into our faculty areas? Those just become web links that again then you can populate. So rather than use YouTube, nothing wrong with it, but obviously it's third party. It's something that is not as secure as it would be if you're using Office 365. that's something that we're interested in terms of that cloud storage. You could do something very similar with Google Drive as well. I'm sure it'll work equally as well. It's just that Office 365 is what we've chosen to at the moment. Again, other cloud storage areas, sort of like Dropbox, and it may well be that you've got dedicated streaming software. So in the college, we have access to ClickView. So some of our larger screencasts, and probably those that we've taken more time over, the higher quality ones, those that have been scripted, we run those through ClickView. And again, that's streaming software. So those may be some of those we use in induction, where we might have 200 students that are logging on at the same time. So if we did that through Moodle, then we'd probably get some bandwidth, sort of like network speed issues, running that through ClickView. So if you use something like Planet eStream, and of course there's many others, then your screencast could go straight up there. Again, if you're going to do lots of them, using that sort of software, you can then sort of like start like meta tag them, get proper repositories that hopefully people will be able to search on. So other points to consider: size of files. It's not necessarily a problem here. We haven't found that to be a problem, but it may well be for some organisations, and it certainly is if you're asking your learners to access them externally. So if I post up a 15-20 minute screencast, which I probably wouldn't recommend anyway, but if I did, onto Moodle, then if my student is accessing that from a poor internet connection at home, then that will take them quite a long time to download that. That's one of the other reasons that I'd recommend chunking them up. One, learners like to see things in short bursts. We definitely know that. But secondly, it is about that accessibility and the download speeds. The other thing is about currency and updating the videos. So if you upload something to YouTube, or it's just shared via email, or it's something that's stored in the cloud, how do you know about the currency and the updating of it? It's probably easier if you're going to sort of like share it through some form of a repository. And again, the ease of sharing is probably better to do it that way. So think of it, don't just, sometimes when things are easy to produce, just start thinking about how you're going to use that in the future. Security is obviously key, particularly if it's an assessment, but also in terms of sort of like the usual, have you got permission? If you're using students' names, work, and also if you're using third-party software. Okay, usually you'll be promoting that third-party software, so I don't think there'd be a major problem, although legally that wouldn't stand up in a court of law. But it's just something to consider, that it's not just something on your laptop you may be sharing with one other person. Things can easily go viral. So just make sure that you speak to people round about that confidentiality, and you have got their permission to use it. I'll pause there. I don't know if anybody's got any questions, and then just perhaps talk briefly about the Learning Futures project and about how we've sort of like moved on. But if anybody's got any questions or comments about screencasting and about how we're using it. Okay, that's great. Okay, so just very briefly, really, the Learning Futures All Ears project, which is about video assessment feedback, or what we're actually saying is feed forward, because we're trying to get that so that people feed their suggestions forward. And this is one of the reasons that we're looking at that. We're saying, and our academic staff are saying to us, do we repeat things to students over and over again? Our written comments never read. The students view things as positive, negative experience, and certainly our staff are saying to me that they spend more and more time feeding back to students, and they're not sure about the value always of that. So potentially, and I stress the word potentially, would you like to use more words in your video feedback? Demonstrate the non-verbal communication. So that would be if the webcam's turned on. So I'm really conscious. I'm sat in my darkened room, and my hands are waving about, and you obviously can't see that. And your learners won't be able to see anything you do when you're just typing down. But the use of the webcam. Some of our staff are starting to use the webcam. Can they see the smiles? Can they see, hopefully not a frown, but can they see that negative perhaps feedback that's coming through? And certainly this thing about students accessing things numerous times, because we're storing that feedback on our online assessment tracking system. And then again, the keyword potentially reduce the time you spend feeding back to students. So early indications say that could be the case, but that's something that we need to do some more research on, and certainly some more testing. So this is the slide that I showed earlier. Hopefully it makes sense to you. Not all our feedback would work in this way. Some would just have the student work up. They wouldn't necessarily have it going straight into the e-portfolio system. Some may not be written work. They may be pictorial. It may be videos themselves that are sort of like being annotated over. But it does give the member of staff feeding back that flexibility to how they wish to do it. So if you were interested in anything I've talked about today, or certainly the all ears project, certainly just get in touch. There's my details on there. Hopefully there's more and more information on the Learning Futures website itself. I'm quite happy for you to get in touch, and certainly if you've got any thoughts and ideas about how you use screencasting, then I'd be delighted to hear from you, because I really think it's something that is well used, but at the same time is vastly underused. Because when you think about where I started from, that YouTube, the phenomenon of YouTube, where I'll be honest, you probably sit in my house, 4 of us live in my house, me and my wife, 2 lads, and I bet at some point in an evening we've all been on YouTube. There's 3 TVs in our house, but we've all been on YouTube, and we're probably all watching 4 different, completely different sorts of things on there. So, can we do that in terms of academically? And I think sometimes we're still thinking about that it takes a long time to do it. We're still thinking about that, hiring out the media department, hiring out sort of like the microphones, etc. And actually, if we want to do something quite quick, yes, sort of like lower quality, but still gets the message across, then screencasting could be something that I'd encourage you to have a good look at.
Brilliant, Roger. Can I, before we move on, just thank you for that input, because I think there were some really clear ideas and suggestions, and thank you for sharing what you're doing at the Oldham College. Before we move on, there is just a final chance if there are any questions that anybody has for Roger. So please do use the chat area if you do have a question. But I was particularly interested in this idea of moving towards students as co-creators. I think that's a really interesting point. And I'm also going to pick up on a point that you mentioned about Zooming and where that fits in with screencasting, because we've put some of that into our CPD activity that I'm going to speak about in a minute. But if anybody has any questions, then by all means just pop them into the chat area. Don't say too many nice things about Roger though, because we'll never hear the last of it. So please just pop any questions that you've got in there. So Sue and David, thank you. I absolutely agree. Brilliant suggestions, some really clear ideas. So Roger, thank you for that. That's been really helpful. What I'd like to do now then is move us on to the last part of the webinar, where I'm going to turn off Roger's slides, and I'm just going to share my screen a second and just talk through quickly how you can you should see what loads on your screen site, something that hopefully you're quite familiar with, and I'm just going to navigate over to the CPD area, and I'm going to bring up screencasting as the module that I'd like to look at. So as I say, that may just take a second or so just to show up on your screen. There's the picture of Roger again, and as I scroll down, you'll see there's that 3-stage approach where you've got the input of the webinar, where the recording is going to be put is where, so you will be sent to find the screencasting title. You will get the webinar recording link there as well if you ever need to come back to it. The CPD activity just going to show that to start with. So if I open up that CPD activity, you'll see we've put a number of activities together. They're not in any specific order, so please feel free just to dip into any of these that you feel are going to be useful. But just to talk you through them fairly quickly, the first one is if you want to know a little bit more about screencasting, then you can click on the link within Activity A, and that's a 10-minute activity from the University of Waterloo. Activity B is how you might use screencasting and some of the work that Roger's been looking at as well to deepen that sort of learning by making thinking visual, and there's some really interesting examples there. So activity B is if you're looking at how does this fit in with pedagogy and how might screencasting help with the process of learning, then have a look at activity B, and that's a 30-minute activity. Activity C, I've shared some of these links already, but if you'd like to have an overview rather than look through all of the different options that you have in software, the main ones are contained within these two links here, so you can have a look through and see the review of what features they've got, if there's costs involved, what those costs are, and what that allows you to do. So that's activity C, and again about a 30-minute activity. Activity D picks up this issue that Roger mentioned about Zoom. So quite often you see within zoom in to show detail or to highlight something in particular. If you're used to doing that, then hopefully that works well, but you will come across some screencasts whereby zooming in, then the quality of what you're looking at tends to disappear, and it can all start to get a bit pixelated and grainy. So there's some tips and techniques for Zoom Activity D. So if you want to scale or zoom, have a look at Activity D. It's only a very quick 5-minute activity, but it will help if you wish to zoom in on any detail in the screencast. And Activity E is picking up from what Roger said, then link there to the project, and that's a direct link to their project area on the site, on the Learning Futures site. And Activity F, just some top tips. So build on what Roger from his experience. There's there to have a look at some of these top tips, and really they're echoing what Roger's already said about chunking things up, what preparation you might need to do, and how you go about putting a good screencast together. But it's worth spending just 30 minutes having a look at that in Activity F. As I mentioned, please feel free to dip into those. They're in no particular order. You're not asked to submit anything that's going to be marked or anything like that with these activities, but they're really there to help you about transference back to the organisation, to help you if you wish to do a little bit more screencasting. Now if I just take you back into the Learning Futures site, you'll see that those activities being put together, but we've trawl the internet and find all of those resources that really punch above their weight, that we feel if you're going to put some time into this, these are the ones that are worth looking at. So we've used a selection of those within the activities, but there's a lot more within these resources as well. So there's all sorts of videos, all sorts of examples that you're able to look at. So I'm just scrolling through them fairly quickly, but please feel free to use that resource area. And as I say, that's where we've done a bit of research to say, well, we think that these are the ones that are really the most helpful if you're going to make a start at looking at screencasting. If there's a particular area that you want to spend a bit of time and develop. So I'm just going to bring you back now in our slide. And I'm just loading our slides that we've got here. And they should show on your screen in a second. So we're coming towards the end of the webinar now. As I say, just wanted to reiterate the positive comments from Roger's presentation. Very clear presentation, really good content, some really interesting ideas, and certainly some that I hadn't thought about. And I like the football example, and as I say, how you might move that towards learners being co-creators within some of this education and teaching and learning materials as well. Thank you for your positive comments that you've put so far. As I say, I hope that you found that useful. Please do access the resources and the CPD activity. we welcome you to any comments that you've got on the Learning Futures site. So if you haven't joined that community, then onto lfutures.co.uk and join up and engage with the other people that are there. But all it leaves me to do now is to thank you for your time. I hope that you found that useful. Please feel free to access the other webinar recordings if you feel that there's a topic there. And if you've got a question, then just get in contact with us through the Futures site. So thank you very much to everybody. I hope you found that useful, and I hope you have a lovely rest of the afternoon.